All right, so it looks like we're just about 3 minutes past the hour. We're going to go ahead and get started now. If you have not done so yet, please let us know in the chat where you are joining from and what brings you to this webinar today. If there's something in particular you're excited to learn about, if there's something, perhaps an upcoming nationally recognized service event that you're going to be participating in. So yeah, please let us know in the chat, and we're going to go ahead and get started now. So again, thank you all so much for joining. My name is Tony Richardson, and I am the Director of Public Lands Engagement with NEEF. In my role, I am responsible for helping to manage our conservation-focused grants, as well as helping to run and coordinate National Public Lands Day. I hope all of you are familiar with National Public Lands Day. If you are not, I will definitely be giving some intro information, some overview information about that. But again, my name is Tony Richardson. You are in the webinar Nature for All, Engaging Underrepresented Communities in the Outdoors. And this webinar is being co-presented with our partners from Disabled and Outdoors. Just to let you guys know what the webinar agenda is going to look like for today. So first, we're going to have a quick introduction to NEEF, the National Environmental Education Foundation. I will provide you with an overview of National Public Lands Day. Then we're going to have an introduction to our partners, Disabled in the Outdoors, and they're going to run through some really great content they've put together for you all, including present and historical barriers to engaging communities that are disabled. Disabled and Outdoors, their work and their success stories, some of their highlights, and also just some tips on how you can be a great ally and how you can make sure that your public land site or your NPLD event is as inclusive as possible. At the end of all this, we'll have some time for question and answers, and feel free, we've got some folks that are monitoring the chat, so if you do have any questions, you can feel free to type those into the chat, but we will get to all of the questions and any comments at the end of the presentation. Again, my name is Tony Richardson, and I'm the Director of Public Lands Engagement with NEEF. So NEEF is the National Environmental Education Foundation. We were congressionally chartered in 1990 as part of the North American Environmental Education Act. We are nonpartisan and non-advocacy. Being a congressionally chartered foundation, we are pretty strictly nonpartisan and non-advocacy. In fact, the only advocacy work that we do is on behalf of ourselves as an organization, advocating for ourselves as an organization. We are charged with advancing environmental literacy nationwide, and we help facilitate as a foundation. Obviously, one thing that we do really well is facilitate public-private partnerships in support of environmental education, health and wellness campaigns, and outdoor engagement opportunities. I think that National Public Lands Day is a really great example of a public-private partnership, and I'll get into that a little bit later in this presentation. So some of our guiding statements, I won't read through all of these, but NEEF's mission is to make the environment more accessible, relatable, relevant, and connected to the daily lives of all Americans. And we really focus in on that all Americans. We understand that in order to make this mission a reality, we have to be working with every segment of the American population. NEEF, we also have a strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. This information is available on our website. I'm not going to read through all of it, but what I did want to focus in on is NEEF's external DE&I goals. And our external goal is to create opportunities for people with varied perspectives and identities to experience and learn about the environment in ways that improve their lives, the lives of their families, and the health of the planet. And I think that what we are here to do today is a great sort of exemplifies that external DE&I goal. We are bringing an amazing partner to this audience in disabled in the outdoors. And we've had a real pleasure working with them over the last few weeks, over the last few months, and getting all of this content together, to put together resources, to raise their profile, to put together, make sure that there's awareness around these issues. And we're just really, really proud to be working with them this year, and really excited to share their expertise with our audience. These are NEEF's areas of focus. So we have 3 areas of focus. We sort of operate through these 3 main pillars, areas of focus, if you will. The first is K through 12 environmental education. We also have a health and wellness focus area. And the third is public lands engagement. And again, I'm the program director for public lands engagement. So this focus area is where National Public Lands Day lives. So National Public Lands Day, a day that I hope each and everyone on this line is familiar with, on this call is familiar with. This year will be the 28th annual National Public Lands Day celebration, and it is scheduled to happen on Saturday, September 25th, 2021. National Public Lands Day is one of the nation's largest single-day volunteer efforts for America's public lands. Each year, hundreds of thousands of volunteers come together to assist with various projects designed to restore and enhance public parks, forests, waterways, and everything in between, from your iconic large national parks to your local urban green spaces, and really everything in between. National Public Lands Day is a celebration and an opportunity to get out and care for public lands of all types and sizes. NPLD provides volunteers of all ages and abilities an opportunity to roll up their sleeves and work side by side to care for public lands. Just to give you guys an idea of the width and breadth of National Public Lands Day, these are our 2019 numbers. 2020, in response to the global pandemic, we did have to pivot and sort of think differently about National Public Lands Day in 2020. So 2019 was the last quote unquote normal year that we had. But in 2019, we engaged over 150,000 volunteers. Those volunteers participated at over 2,000 sites across the country. They logged over 600,000 volunteer hours, and we estimate that the value of those volunteer hours logged was just shy of $16 million. Pretty remarkable when you think about just how much work there is to be done on public lands of all types and sizes, that we can give back almost $16 million in volunteer hours in just one day. So through National Public Lands Day, NEEF works to connect people to public lands in their community, inspire environmental stewardship, and encourage the use of public lands for education, recreation, and general health and wellness. The annual NPLD celebration is a fee-free entrance day for the National Park Service and other federally managed public lands. In 2021, this year, National Public Lands Day is one of only 6 entrance fee-free days designated by the Department of the Interior. As you can imagine, with there being no entrance fees on that day, even more incentive for folks to get out, for folks to have a good time, for folks to explore potentially a new public land that they've never been to before. Creating a connection with nature is at the heart of developing a volunteer ethic towards the environment, which is really a core to National Public Lands Day. However, we must also acknowledge that the responsibility of caring for the environment should not be limited to just one group. Stewardship, volunteerism requires everyone, outdoor enthusiasts, naturalists, local governments, community members, in order to truly be successful. At NEEF, diversity, equity, inclusion is at the core of our mission and how we approach our work. Making the environment more accessible, relatable, and relevant, and connected to the daily lives of all Americans is only possible if we incorporate a variety of perspectives from our work, team, partners, and the public to make our work effective. This presentation that you are a part of right now is just one of a new set of DEI partners that NEEF has launched this year. And given our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are just so fortunate and so proud to be working with these 3 grassroots organizations to engage people in the outdoors, and particularly groups that have been historically underrepresented on public lands. The webinar that you are joining today, again, is just part of a series. We had one last week that was focused on engaging Spanish-speaking communities that we did with our amazing partners from Corazon Latino. That webinar is up as a recording, and we're having one next week with Pride Outside, talking about the LGBTQ plus community, and that one will also be, you can sign up for it now, and if you're unable to make it next Wednesday at 2 p.m., that one will also be recorded. So as I said, we are just super excited to be working with these three partners. And today we are really, really happy and excited to share with you expertise from our partners at Disabled and Outdoors. Before we launch into Disabled and Outdoors, and before I allow them to introduce themselves, we do have a poll question for the audience. So if you look in the chat, my colleague Nicole is going to put a link in the chat. And if you click on that link, you're going to be presented with a question. What are your outdoor goals? You can provide up to 3 answers, but we ask you to provide 1-word answers, please. And what we're going to do is actually make a word cloud out of these. So if you would now, if everyone could look in the chat, find that link, click on that link, and take 1 or 2 minutes just to fill out that poll question. Again, what are your outdoor goals? You can provide up to 3 answers. Or you could just provide 1, and please 1-word answers. Awesome. I'm seeing some really, really great answers. It looks like some folks are putting them in the chat. If you could, you just want to click on this link right here. You're going to click on that link in the chat. It's the Minty, www.minty.com link. And if you could put those in, to the correct places, that will allow you to be included in this word cloud over here. So seeing some really good words here. Fun, that's a good one. Connection, conservation, inclusion, education. Loving what we're seeing. Curiosity, loving what we're seeing so far. All right, I'll just give everybody 1 more minute, a few more seconds. All right. And everyone can see this word cloud, right? Everyone can see Nicole's screen. Perfect. All right, really, really. So it looks like our top ones, if you're not familiar with what a word cloud, how a word cloud works, essentially the words that are the biggest are the words that were mentioned the most. So as you can tell, inclusion was definitely one that a lot of people mentioned. Connection, peace, education, inclusive, love these, welcoming, accessible. All very, very great words, really setting the tone for the content that we're about to hear. So the reason why we asked you guys to fill that question, and thank you, Nicole, I will take the screen sharing back. The reason why we had asked you guys to fill that out is actually because our partners at Disabled and Outdoors asked this very same question to their audience. So this is their Instagram page right here. I hope all of you guys can see this, but you can see they posed this question out to their audience of thousands and thousands and thousands of followers and asked them, what are your outdoor goals? And they had some really cool answers. And I thought that it would be nice for us to sort of compare and contrast some of the answers that you all gave with some of the answers that they gave. So one that we definitely wanted to share is from Sky Noir. To be able to get outside in my neighborhood a few times a week when I'm feeling well, and to be able to sit outside for a few minutes a day when I'm in a flare. I think that's a really, really great example, and really just talks to the mental well-being of being outside. And again, everyone should have access to the mental benefits of spending time in the outdoors. And there is another one here that I'd like to read, and I'm actually going to ask our guest speaker to read this one. Ambika?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tony. My name is Ambika Rajyagor, and I am one of the co-founders for Disabled and Outdoors. And I'm just going to go ahead and read one of my responses to this outdoor goals post. At the time, I had actually fractured my entire femur, and I'm also a caretaker for my special needs. She's cognitively and physically disabled little sister. So when I had fractured my femur, I lost my mobility almost completely. And so I was posting about my outdoor goals because I was also wanting to hear what other people in our community had to say about it. So I was just really excited to heal up again and start training so that way I could push my little sister through all the trails in Yosemite and get back to what we do, what we love doing the most, is be back on the trails. We've also got a few other great examples on here. And I guess this is just a good overview on what we do with our Instagram page with Disabled Outdoors. We spark conversation and community so people can get to know each other and also identify similar goals and interests. So we've got something right here, like Vera Wandering wanted to go backpacking with their family for the first time, or Cat the Cap wanted to go camping once per quarter, and just allow mindfulness and joyful movement as they were interacting with the outdoors.
Awesome. Yeah, so thank you guys again for participating in our quick audience poll. We thought that would be a cool way, again, just to show you guys sort of the types of things that Disabled in the Outdoors does, as well as just hear from you all. We definitely will be keeping that word cloud and using that as we move forward. And so for now, I will turn the presentation over and allow for you all to hear from our experts from Disabled in the Outdoors.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Ambika Rajyagor, and I am one of the co-founders for Disabled Outdoors. We are a small, independent BIPOC-run organization made by and for the disabled and outdoors community. Our mission is to amplify disabled outdoor voices, provide resources for our community, and also create long-lasting systemic change within the outdoor industry. We'd like to see what we're doing now impact the lives of future generations. And so that is a huge part of also why we're here today, because thank you again for giving me your afternoon, or an hour of your afternoon, just to speak on these issues that really matter to our community. Next slide, please. Here is a little bit about our founders, and I guess a little bit about myself as well. In 2017, Disabled Outdoors was founded on the premise that there should be outdoor access for all. We often hear that the outdoors is meant for everyone, or the outdoors is for everyone. But is that really applicable when things like racism, classism, and ableism exist? There's no true outdoors for all when there's no access to these areas. So our motivations behind this platform and creating the organization of Disabled Outdoors were definitely inspired by our experiences with disabilities, as being caretakers for those who live with disabilities, and just the barriers that we've personally faced in the outdoor spaces as BIPOC individuals and as disabled individuals. So there's an image of me and my little sister, Davika. She is my superhero, my best friend, and she is also the inspiration behind most of the work I do. She has Lennox-Gastaut syndrome and is a leukemia survivor. And so we have grown up together, and throughout our life have faced just multiple barriers, but especially in the outdoors, because it's something that I'm so passionate about and want to share with her. And to the right, we've got our co-founder, Aki Rose, who is an Indigenous disabled individual who lives in the Pacific Northwest, and they actually started this platform to share their personal experiences and expand from there. Next slide, please. Thank you. And to start, we'll just talk about the present and historical barriers that exist within the disabled community and in the outdoor space. So I think it's pretty general to say, like, throughout modern history, there's just been a lack of disabled representation and access across social and economic platforms. For example, when was the last time you saw a disabled main character in any media just being represented as anything that wasn't focused on their disability? Their disability does not make up their entire personality, and that's what we're trying to say about the outdoors as well. Like, you can be a disabled individual and also love the outdoors, but that it doesn't have to be a singular thing. So talking about that and talking about the social economic lack of representation, we want to talk about access. So we have to expand on the word access, and that includes identifying unfair disparities when it comes to access to outdoor spaces and programs, adaptive outdoor equipment, and overall disabled representation within the outdoor industry and community. Next slide, please. Some examples of these barriers include the number of truly accessible places in our public lands, inclusive outdoor recreational programs, and access to adaptive equipment like trail and beach wheelchairs, and the overall just disabled representation that we see in print media as well as digital media. Next slide, please. Thank you. To do that, I felt like the best way to show and to speak on this was through visuals, and also just visuals on places that I've personally visited and traveled to. These are some of my favorite parks I'm mentioning here, so I promise it's not a call out. It's more of just a, I've been here so I can speak on it kind of description. But right here, we've got a map of Chino Hills State Park. It's right up the street from me. It's one of my favorite places to go to have gone throughout my childhood, and I continue to go. There are a number of major trails in Chino Hills State Park. There's about 41. Of those 41, I've hiked about 38. Like I have a little box where I cross off where I've hiked. And I've also brought my sister to these parks. The number of disabled accessible trails in this Chino Hills State Park, though, is 0. And that's kind of a frightening amount. Like there's none that have been completely designated to be a disabled accessible trail. There are spaces like campgrounds, there's about 3 or 4 where someone in a wheelchair could come out and like just view the nature, but that's pretty much it. So that's just one example of trail accessibility. Next slide, please. Another example is Yosemite Valley. This is my absolutely favorite favorite national park and favorite place to be. So this one is just an example of the hiking map in Yosemite Valley. There are 10 major trails in Yosemite Valley. I've hiked all 10 by myself, with individuals in my friend group who have disabilities themselves, and also with my sister while we were push hiking her wheelchair. Of these 10 trails, we've got about 3 that are designated disabled accessible, and I have hiked all 3 of those with my sister as well. So we've done, and the descriptions on this trail hiking map are just, they're very descriptive when it comes to moderation and how far someone's energy level could go, and we really do appreciate that. There are places like the Valley Loop Trail I would try to take my sister anyway. It's not designated disabled accessible. However, like I've tried to do that, and you kind of experience something with the other visitors in the park where they say like, what are you doing with this wheelchair here? Or trail's not big enough for you in your wheelchair, and things like that. And it's very hard to experience or share an experience of the place that you love in the outdoors, and then have that person that's with you feel like they don't belong or they're not welcome there. And so I left this as an example of these are some of the major trails, but these are only 3 of them are disabled accessible, and even then we face social barriers. Next slide. So in addition to just access to different trails, we also want to talk about the present barriers that exist when it comes to statistical analysis and just inclusion overall. So every year, the Outdoor Foundation produces the Outdoor Participation Report. It's the largest, most comprehensive research report in outdoor recreation. It is a 25-page report. So I read this year's report, last year's report, and the year before, just so that way I can make sure I got a comprehensive overview on like, how are they representing us? And the fact is, they're not. There is not a single reference to an individual disabilities in the entire report for the past 3 years. And I'm sure going back further, but you can go ahead and click, if you click on that link, like outside of this meeting and read through that PDF, it's really an overview on sample size, and then just in general, the typical outdoors person. So not having a single reference to an individual with disabilities just makes a member of that community feel like they are not included and not welcome when it comes to marketing or things like that. And next slide, please. Here are some slides from that review, and this is just an executive summary. You can see right here where they talk about diversity, but more as just this is a thing that people are talking about, not as this is diversity and this is how we are going to impact it. So in this overview, in talking about different levels of diversity, it's focused more on racial and ethnic diversity as a trend, and the need for that as a trend, is as opposed to how to change it, and then also just not acknowledging the diversity when it comes to ability. Next slide, please. This report, so I said like a couple mean things about that, but I didn't mean to. But this report does provide data for the average income of a typical outdoor participant. So that was very helpful because I wanted to juxtapose that with the typical outcome that we see with individuals who live with disabilities. So in the outdoor report, they say that of the 46.8% of individuals who are in the United States who are typically outdoors, the average income is $75,000 or more. And this is probably to take into account like how expensive like participating in outdoor programs is, the equipment for things like that, and traveling to things like that cost. So that number is a little high, but I wanted to juxtapose that with the Center on Disabilities statistic on the average income in America for an individual who lives with disabilities. And that number is $43,300. So as you can see, that is quite the gap. And so maybe that includes or that's a part of why the disabled community wasn't included in that report, but we can only choose to speculate from there. But I'll show you for the next slide, and we'll see how those numbers apply to some of the barriers that we face. So next slide, please. Thank you. The images on your right are a simple Google search. All I did was Google trail wheelchair, look up the prices for that. That's a screenshot. On the bottom, that is when I Googled beach wheelchair, looked up the prices for that. And that's what we see there. So we see the average price around like $2,000 to $3,000. When you look at the average income of a disabled individual in America being $43,300, and not taking into account their living and medical expenses that they already pay on top of like, and they already pay in addition to what they pay in general to like exist pretty much. This number to pay for a device like a device like this or any adaptive equipment is not feasible. So financial inaccessibility for most members of the disabled community is definitely present and definitely a hindrance to disabled individuals being able to go outdoors and to visit our public lands. Next slide, please. On this slide, it's just another present and historical barrier. Here are some magazine covers and print advertisement, just media about the outdoors from different media groups, and disabled representation in this outdoor media is sparse, if even existent. For example, Condé Nast Traveler had featured us in this like tiny paragraph on how to have disabled representation on a trail. However, there was no visual representation of anyone with a disability. So we've got different like magazine headlines that say like the new gardener, the new face of adventure, but nowhere is it mentioned that someone with disabilities is part of that new chapter. On some of these ads right here, like for example, there is a air conditioning for your tent, like that kind of tool. No one with a disability is like featured in that kind of marketing, and for like tick and insect repellent, they're not featured there as well. This isn't to say that people with disabilities wouldn't need something like that. I would argue that someone with a disability who has temperature sensitivities would actually benefit from a tool like that, like an air conditioning inside a tent. So it would be ideal to have them be like the target market to advertise to, or for insect repellent, have an individual who has in a wheelchair, for example, be using that spray in advertising, just so that way, like you could advertise that, you know, you can't run away from this, but you can like apply it and have that available to you. There are just different ways that the disabled community could be visually represented in this media and marketing that since have not been featured. And so I just wanted to put that up there to provide a little bit of a visual, like we exist, we're outdoors, we still buy and use all these materials, but we're not being featured. So when you don't have representation, you don't feel like you belong in a community. And so that is what we're trying to get at with the disabled community. Like we would like to have representation so that way we can truly feel like we are a part of it. Next slide, please. And so we've talked about these present and historical barriers, but we also want to talk about Disabled Outdoors, what we do and what we've done so far. To date, Disabled Outdoors has worked with multiple organizations within the outdoor industry. That includes All Trails, NEEF, NPCA's Desert Keepers Council, and intersectional environmentalists. And we've done all this in order to create opportunities and provide resources for our community. We definitely want to provide educational resources to our community so that they can know like what they're able to do within all these outdoor spaces. We're also planning to include some more accessible stewardship and conservation conversations on our platforms. So we'll start by bringing up the conversation and then like lean more towards like planning virtual and in-person volunteer events. And so that's one of the great things about working with NEEF, and we're so excited to be partnering with them for National Public Lands Day. And I'll get to that later in the presentation, but being a part of the conservation initiative is very important to us because we obviously love the outdoors and we want to do anything we could to preserve that. And so here are some visuals on how we reach out to our community. We make posts about what are some accessible springtime outdoor activities, because there are different ideas that our members of our community have and can share. Different accessible outdoor adventure programs that exist on different plains of the United States. There's some different courses that we've also like promoted on our page For example, ASL for the Outdoors was an inclusive course that was offered this past month. And then right here on our bottom left, we've got an opportunity that All Trails have presented with us where they would reward a membership to members of our community who would input their trail data. So they were building they're building like a software to navigate how one with a disability could go through an entire trail and like where they would need to stop or where the trail elevation would be too much, just so that way members of our community and beyond who are interested in these types of things would have access to it. Next slide, please. Disabled Outdoors also, we just use our Instagram platform to amplify and empower our community. And like you saw earlier when we had that question, like what are your outdoor goals? We really want to empower our community and bring them together, start these conversations so that way people who have experiences and are sharing them can see that they're not alone in their experiences or in the barriers that they face as well. So I put like follow and tag Disabled Outdoors on Instagram if you'd like to be featured. If you know anyone who would like to be featured on our page, we'd love to share their story as well. One good example is yesterday we actually had a member we reposted and she was getting ready to travel to Mexico and she was writing about how she needed walking aids and the different types of walking aids she uses or she packs in her bags. And she was talking about the struggles that she had with checking that, as well as which ones would be useful on different areas of her travel, like which ones are good for the airport, which ones are good for trails. And so we had other members comment their experiences and really start a dialogue on like how you can effectively travel with your disability and with different types of walking aids. So we really love that our platform is a method or like a vehicle for our members to do this. Next slide, please. Disabled and Outdoors, ways to be an ally. So we've talked about barriers, what we do, what we have so far, and now it's about going forward, what do we do? And a huge part of that is allyship. So some of the best practices for engaging the disabled community in outdoor stewardship engagements includes actually having disabled representation on these planning commissions. So it's really important to have someone who lives with a disability or who even just multiple people whose disabilities are all different. There's cognitive, physical, and every disability looks different. So having that representation on a planning commission can really not only provide inclusivity for the community when it comes to future growth, like having a seat at the table, but also just in ensuring that the experience is truly inclusive for the members who are going to attend these events. Ensuring adaptive or accessible equipment at events. As you saw earlier, the income disparity is so much so that accessing this adaptive equipment is just not feasible. So having access to a rental agency or any type of way to be able to like use a trail wheelchair temporarily or a beach wheelchair temporarily would ensure more people to attend the event and feel welcome at the event. Promoting events through disabled friendly marketing. So when I say that, I mean mostly through like social or digital and print advertising. The use of an alt text description is very important. You can do this on different forms of social media like Facebook and Instagram, for example, where when you make a visual post, you describe that visual post and it will actually do a audio response for anybody who is not able to visually see it. And also providing captions. So if you're making any video content, providing captions that are easily to read for those who are hard of hearing. And lastly, we have coordinating with local disabled community groups and school programs. So this is a huge one because we do want to imply that engaging with your local community is extremely important. Speaking from my personal experience, when I was volunteering with my little sister's high school, she was in a county special needs classroom. She had a lot of students with her who were from foster group homes. And these kids would see the bus, they would see their house, the bus, school, and that's it. They would not go to the parks, they would not go outdoors. When I inquired, like, how could we set up a field trip? It just wasn't something that was feasible within the budget. But now that we know that there are programs that exist and outdoor programs that exist, maybe we could start to secure funding like on a public level to make sure kids in these underrepresented communities are able to access the outdoors. So it'd be really cool to see that and have that coordination along with our parks. Next slide, please. We'd also like to advocate for more inclusive and accessible spaces on our public lands. So I talked about the trails earlier, but it's not just limited to trail engineering and parking. It's accessible spaces would include just disabled friendly designated areas, public programs, etc. Like I recently visited Mammoth Lake, so that's in the Eastern Sierras, which is unfortunately on fire right now. It's really sad. But Mammoth Lakes, that area is very disabled friendly. Like I go to scope out the area really, and then come back with my sister if I know that it's a disabled friendly area. And when I was there were so many disabled designated spaces, and like a trail walkway just to go to the beach on the lake was available to everybody. There were just different viewpoints that were, the ramp was like at an incline where someone who in a wheelchair could actually push themselves. And so having these spaces really makes people feel included and belong. And so I think that is something we should be advocating more for. Advocating for financially accessible adaptive equipment. So I talked about that more, but it would be really cool not just to have them at specific events, but just in our public lands in general. So if someone is a disabled individual visiting, for example, any of our national parks, if they could go to the visitor center and rent out an accessible wheelchair, things like that, that would be really inclusive and open to our community. And lastly, addressing just the lack of disabled representation in outdoor media and advertising, just driving that point home that members of the disabled community are going outside, we are purchasing things and participating in programs and participating in different things in our parks, but we are not being represented, and would like to see that. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to actually hand it over to Tony, and he's going to talk about some of the success stories. So we've talked about things that we want, and now we're going to talk about things that have gone well. So, oh, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. So I thought it would be great. I just have two quick examples that I wanted to share with you guys, real world examples of sort of how we have seen folks either in a community, sort of an event situation, how they have made that event more inclusive and more welcoming. And we also have another program that I'm going to talk about as my second example. But the first one is I want to talk about ADA focused service projects during National Public Lands Day. So in 2019, NEEF partnered with the Rock Creek Conservancy and Rock Creek National Park to host the MPLD signature event at Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C. Every year we do one signature event. It's a pretty big deal. It's usually a very, very big event. I think this event was close to 300 people. We were fortunate to have keynote speaker, the then director of the National Park Service. So the signature event is really an MPLD event, but really, really one that's sort of taken to another level, being the one signature event that's in the country. So to help celebrate, RCC hosted volunteers from the local community for 5 conservation projects at sites near Rock Creek Park Nature Center. To ensure that the event was inclusive of people of all ages and abilities, RCC included an ADA compliant volunteer project. The ADA project took place near the cook-off location. They wanted to ensure that these folks were not having to travel too far in order to get to their project location. And the activities included things that were needed, things that the park needed to get done, important work for the park, but again, things that could be done by anyone of any age or any ability, such as painting, paint stripping, or building a bee hotel. The bee hotels were then put up in the park to help encourage pollinator habitat. These activities were promoted. I think a real key to this is that these activities were promoted before and during the event as being ADA compliant to ensure that the community members could take advantage, that they were knowledgeable, that this would be there, and that they would take advantage of it. By prioritizing an ADA compliant project, NEEF and RCC ensured that people of all, as I said, all ages and abilities could fully participate and feel welcomed at that MPLD event. And I think when we started the event, we actually didn't have anyone working in that group, but then by the end of it, I think people started trickling in, and we had 4 or 5 people, and it ended up being just a really, really great. I think they ended up building quite a few birdhouses, so it ended up being bee hotels, excuse me. So it ended up being just a really, really great opportunity for the park, but then also a great opportunity to make them, as I said, make them feel welcome, include and cultivate an inclusive atmosphere. The second story that I wanted to share is actually a grantee of NEEFs. And so it's the Friends of Sleeping Bear Dunes at Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. A major area of emphasis for Sleeping Bear Dunes is to make park beaches and trails more accessible to people of varying abilities. But the very nature of the national park means that some places and experiences might be difficult for some visitors with limited mobility or impairment of hearing or sight. As you can see, this is a pretty rough terrain. It's a steep incline. There's some challenges there. The Friends of Sleeping Bear Dunes were awarded a grant from NEEF to conduct accessibility assessments on 4 beaches and 20 miles of trails throughout the lakeshore. The goal of the project was to identify barriers for people with physical disabilities and recommend improvements. This information was also made available to the public online so that visitors, to Ambika's point, so that visitors ahead of time could log on, find out all the information that they need about that trail, and make the best decision for themselves. Additionally, they were able to use funding from NEEF to purchase a track chair, which was established program for public use. So that chair, just what Ambika said, that chair is there. Anyone can check that chair out. It's always there. As long as no one else has checked the chair out, then you can get there that day and you can check the chair out and use that chair. So just wanted to share those 2 real world success stories. And now I will give the presentation back to Ambika.
Thank you. And I do see some Q&As in that category and also some questions in the chat that we'll address. But before we close out, I did want to highlight some other amazing disabled inclusive organizations that we have featured on our page, but also are continuing to work with. So Waypoint Adventure, I included links to this presentation as well, but Waypoint Adventure provides adventure-based disabled accessible programs, and they work with schools as well as social service programs all around the East Coast. We'd love to see that expanded and see that on both coasts and all around the United States. Northeast Passage, they provide adaptive outdoor therapy as well as accessible outdoor sport programs. Access Tracks, they're a company that created a lightweight portable pathway that provides wheelchair access in outdoor spaces. So much of what Tony was speaking earlier, some things that we saw in places like June Lake and Mammoth Lakes, they have different tracks to get you off of different terrain. So if you're in a wheelchair and you want to go from the sand, you just put down the tracks and wheel your way. The Lockwood, oh, sorry, go ahead. Were you saying something? Oh, no, okay. The Lockwood Foundation. And this is an amazing organization that actually works with their local volunteers to bring wheelchair users up to Colorado's famous 14er mountain. So this is a life goal of mine, and to see that this foundation is doing things bringing their volunteers to help people achieve their dreams is really something amazing. And then Grip Freedom Chair. So they actually created the most financially accessible all-terrain wheelchair that is presently on the market. And so we just wanted to highlight some of these organizations because it's really important for us to amplify what's already being done for our community and also see what we can do to help bring us all together. Thank you so much again. And I'll give it back to Tony and then we can start answering some of the Q&As. But I also forgot to mention, this is the biggest part. Disabled Outdoors is going to be working with NEEF to host a Disabled Accessible Stewardship event for National Public Lands Day. So we're very excited to have an accessible event in Los Angeles, California. It'll be Saturday, September 18th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And if you'd like to attend, we would love for that to happen. Please go ahead and email me at ambika@gangesgal.com or follow Disabled Outdoors on Instagram because we will be posting about it with more details. But thank you again for your time today, and we'll go ahead and I'll give it over to Tony and we'll do Q&A.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. So at this time, if there are any questions or comments, I know that you said there were already a few, so I'm going to pop back over to the chat and see. But if you guys want to go ahead and start dropping them in.
Could we start with the ones that are in the Q&A little category right here?
Yes.
Cool.
All right, so the first one is from Christy, and it's, are there articles, videos, books to continue understanding this topic?
Yes, so we have a feature in the Intersectional Environmentalist book that is going to be released later this year, but there's also a bunch of literature that presently exists, and we'll be sharing those resources on our Instagram page. And as well as highlighting the authors who wrote them. So I'll put that up. And we also share on our stories different articles that have been released for the disabled community when it comes to the outdoor space.
And if I could, I would also just plug NEEF also has a public lands guide with a focus on accessibility that we worked on with the DC mayors, the Office of Disability Rights, as well as our grantees from Sleeping Bear Dunes. And we have some great resources, some great both of the real world examples that I shared were from that accessibility guide that is on our website. And I can go ahead and I'll drop a link to that in the chat in just a second. But again, we worked on that with the U.S. Forest Service and the National Park Service, and could be another great resource to explore this issue even further. Our next question is, hi, I am someone, it is from Anne Marie. Hi, I am someone with varied ability and a member of the community. Can you clarify if you are part of the disabled community or if you are a caretaker to a member of the disabled community / an ally? Your language was including yourself in the community, but you said you only had experienced a broken leg and were a caretaker of someone with a disability. Language and representation is really important in this conversation.
I'll go ahead and answer this one. That is a great question, Anne Marie. Thank you for asking that and asking me to clarify. I apologize for not fully clarifying, but it's a little bit of both. So yes, I am a caretaker for my little sister. I aid my mom in being her caretaker, as well as I live with a neurodivergency, and I have been recently diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that affects my ability to, I don't know how to completely talk about this in public yet, but my ability to hike in the parks that I love so much, and to be a part of the outdoor community that I love so much, because it affects my energy levels as well as my mobility. So I see what you mean when you say like your language is including yourself, but then like only talking about my broken leg. So there's a bunch of different factors that include that, but I do believe that like part of our representation is being by and for a community, and so that is why being a part of Disabled Outdoors as a co-founder is so important to me.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Anne-Marie. So we have another one from Anonymous. Because I work with grant funding, I worry about sounding patronizing and sleazy when reaching out to communities. How can I politely and effectively reach out to this community? Great question.
That is a great question. I don't think you sound patronizing even with this one, so I doubt you sound like that in other ones. Some of the language you could use, just a general disclaimer, is like when you talk about the disabled community, always make sure that you are capitalizing the letter D when you write disabled. So that's one thing, and that's just like on text. But when it comes to reaching out to them in the words you can use in the phrasing, it would be, hi, I'm building this program. It will be about this. What are some things I could do to best represent your community and make sure that we are being as inclusive as possible? Just things like that and phrases like that to facilitate a conversation are more important than just saying, hey, we're doing this thing for disabled folks, thought you could join. Like there's different things you could say, and it's more about pushing like how you could be inclusive and how you can make things as accessible as possible. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I'm going to go through and start answering some of the questions that we got in just the chat box, or asking some of the questions that we got in the chat box. I just want to give everyone a time check. We have about 10 minutes left. We will try to get through all of the questions if we can, but if we cannot, both Ambika and I have all of these questions written down. We'll pull all these and we'll be sure to follow up with you after this. We'll shoot you an email answering your question if we're not able to get to it in the last 10 minutes that we have together. Any pointers / resources we'd want to recruit / promote disabled community to join Nature and All Leadership Academy community education courses. It looks like it's in Los Angeles County. Sorry, this is from Brian. I can't see his full last name. Do you see which question I'm looking at, Ambika?
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to keep track. Yes. Do you mind if I read it to myself first?
Yep, go for it. Well, here's an easy one. Melanie just asked, will the recording of today's session be shared? Yes, definitely. We are recording this and we will get this out as soon as possible. The recording will be emailed to everyone who registered for it, and the links to the recording will also be up on our website. So yeah, and then we'll go back and look.
We can answer Brian's question. So pointers and resources, I would say the local programs you have. So for example, for LA County, like Disabled Outdoors, we're based in Southern California as well. So if you have any questions on how to reach out to different organizations to partner for any stewardship events or things like that, we can help facilitate that. But also just in general, like resources would be typing in, and I know it's like just a basic thing, but adaptable outdoor programs or adaptable outdoor groups or accessible outdoor groups, because a lot of different cities and states have them, and it's just in these small communities. It's just we haven't seen this on a larger scale. And so what we're trying to do with Disabled Outdoors is build like a platform where this is all accessible. So you could like click on a state and be like, this is everything going on in that state. Those are things that are in the works and ideas that we have. But for right now, I would just say reach out to your local organizations.
So Emma had a question, and she said, do you have recommendations for funding or grants to purchase trail wheelchairs, or other outdoor equipment for those who need it? First part of her question. And so I would say from the NEEF perspective, we actually have an accessibility funding opportunity that's going to be opening up in the next couple months. I can definitely share information about that. I'm sure we can add information about that to the webpage, just a quick line linking to the other page. That opportunity has not launched yet. The information is still coming together, but I know that we will have some funding available for these types of projects, these types of materials, these types of supplies coming down, and I will definitely be sure to share that information when it comes. I don't know, Ambika, if you have any other sort of recommendations for funding or grants or securing funding.
Presently, no, but we do have this in the plan. Like as I mentioned earlier, like Disabled Outdoors is a grassroots organization, but in our plans is to include micro grants to our community, because we think that through micro grants we would be able to provide like a one-on-one experience. Like here's a grant so you can buy the assets you need or like the adaptive equipment you need. And so as we build Disabled Outdoors, that is something that'll be coming up down the line.
And additionally, Emma, same person asked, do you have general recommendations or insight on developing park programming for those with cognitive disabilities, not just physical adaptations and resources?
Yes, and for that, I would say to include, just like if I give a general example, the Desert Keepers Council that I'm a part of with the National Parks Conservation Association chose to include members of the disabled community within their council, so that way they could have physical disabilities as well as cognitive disabilities represented in the engineering of different programs. So having that that representation, that seat at the table will help when it comes to planning these events. So I would say to reach out to your local community. There are like different, like if you're talking about different cognitive disabilities, the types of disabilities you want to see represented, there are local organizations for that. So for example, like the Autism Association or like Los Angeles County or things like that. It's very grassroots, I know, like it's not like there's an official search engine for people with disabilities, but it's a part of being in the community. Like another just general experience, like I was on a bunch of different Facebook group pages for individuals who have disabilities, like my sisters and like my own, and I would reach out and say like, hey, has anybody done these kinds of things outdoors? What are your opinions and your thoughts or your recommendations? And they would give them. And so that has been a huge game changer when it comes to how we could link our Disabled Outdoors community to that and really expand how we plan our events and things like that.
Awesome. And it looks like one of our last questions here from Tiara Chapman. Tiara from Texas. Where can I go to learn how to use adaptive recreation equipment? We have some equipment for kayaking and fishing, and I need help learning how to use it and communicating that we have those resources to our community.
So I'm going to work backwards on my answer for that one. So communicating that you have those resources to the community is probably the biggest one, because from there, you'll be able to learn how to use that adaptive equipment. So first, I would contact with the creators of that adaptive equipment. They should have enough accessible, I wouldn't say like instruction manuals, but just visuals to be able to like include that, but also show the people who are going to be using that in the future, like a visual on this is how you can access this equipment, this is how you use it, and if anything happens, just to like cover your bases safety wise. So that's one thing. And then also when it comes to communicating that you have those resources to the community, there might already be somebody who knows how to use that adaptive equipment who could help you, and also be an instructor or a leader when it comes to bringing other members of the community into using that equipment.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
I think that was one of our last questions. I know that we had a couple duplicates in here. There was another question where they were asking about sort of engaging and reaching out and communicating, but I think we have already covered that topic and answered that question. So I think that was our last question. Is there any email we can get for future questions? Yes, of course. Sorry about that. Why don't we both, Ambika, do you want to type your email address into the chat, and I will also put my email address into the chat, and feel free to reach out to either of us. I'm happy if you have a question for me and I can't answer it. I definitely can go and confer with Ambika and forward the question on to her. She obviously is the expert on this, and as you can see, she definitely knows her stuff and just very passionate about this. So yeah, thank you guys so much again. Again, this recording will be made live. I think we're going to try and get it out tomorrow, but I'm not 100% sure. But as soon as the recording is made available, anyone who registered for this webinar will receive an email with a link to that recording. It will also go up on our social media and on our website. And you can always reach out to my email address and shoot me a reminder and tell me to send you a link to the recording. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We thank you guys so much for joining again. On behalf of the National Environmental Education Foundation, I definitely want to thank all of the audience for joining, but definitely want to shout out to Ambika and Pride Outside for being amazing, for being great partners, and for really helping to bring this education to this audience. So thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who gave their hour today just to listen and learn more about the disabled community and how we can impact the outdoors.
All right. And with that, we will conclude. Thank you guys again, and we'll be in touch soon. Bye, everybody.